yeah.
Hello, hello. We are live here with a book release live for L.M. Douglas's Gharantia's Fury. This is Lorraine's first appearance as an author on a show. So people in the chat, make sure you make it a memorable one for her. How you choose to make it memorable, that's up to you. But let's make this memorable. So it looks like we've got at least Eamon, Alex, and Bella in the chat. So they're all
So I'm just looking.
here.
I'm not used to this, so I'm looking at the where everybody
So
is.
what we're gonna do is we are going to get started with give us a little bit of a background. Introduce yourself, talk about your books, whatever you want to say.
Okay, so I'm Lorraine, L.M. Douglas, and I've written 2 books so far. So the first one is Gharantia's Guardian, which is here. That's my so this was released in November last year. So it's my book baby, and it took a long time to write, basically, because when I started writing in COVID times, I basically just wrote like a whole book, which wasn't that one, and it just spiraled, and there was just like loads and loads of different things all coming off it, and I basically pulled it all back and decided that I would stop writing and start again. And I had a scene in my head, which I had written down, of a throne room scene. So I had the 4 main characters, Criterius, Melaine, Chiron, and Queen Vlardis. And I had a whole scene set up. And I kind of kept reading it over and over again. And I think I was just sort of processing who those characters actually were. And I was sort of formulating what their motivations were and their characters. And then from that, I decided that Criterius was going to be the main character, because previously it was one of the other ones. So that's when I started properly writing, and I think that was probably about January 2022. And I kind of wrote that book alongside book 2, book 3, and loads of different novellas. It was a bit crazy. I'm a bit of a pantster. So I've had to pull back quite a lot and sort out my head about where everything is fitting in and going. But the good news is I've got loads of ideas for this series. So book 2 came out Friday the 13th of September, which wasn't that long ago. And that was quite a struggle to get through that book, just because I changed the ending on GG. So GF was quite a tricky one to process. So yeah. Now I'm so glad I finished it. And now I'm working on book 3. So that's where I kind of am. And I've got other things on the go as well.
So who was the original character? The original main character?
So I don't know if you've read. See, it's quite hard to not give too many spoilers, but there's a place that's mentioned in GG called Journast, which is an event happens there. So all my COVID writing was like blah, 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 was about Journast, and it was about Chiron, who was so it was the Queen's General was riding down to there to investigate what was going on. And there was another character called Malik, which might appear at some point, but I kind of pulled it all back, and Malik kind of morphed into Pilt, and Pilt became his own guy. And yeah, Chiron basically, he took a back seat a little bit to Criterius. So yeah,
Alex says that we need to give an overview of what Gharantia's Guardian is about.
Sorry. Yeah, so you basically start off in Gharantia's Guardian at the start of a year. So they have a bleak, which the Queen puts over the whole city, not the whole realm, just to be aware, it's just the whole city of Gharantia, which is the capital city of the Gharantia realm. And Gharantia realm is basically 12 duchies, and she kind of controls all of that. And the bleak basically is a little bit like Sleeping Beauty, where you have, everyone goes to sleep for the winter, and that basically, it's like they're safe. Basically, there's no risk to anything, and then they wake up and they've not got any illness and they've not had any winter colds and stuff like that. So, it starts off quite gently, I think. Like my whole point of introducing the characters quite slowly, so that you kind of get your bearings in the world and the place. You kind of get a hint of Vlardis's character. And Melaine is her cousin, who's a princess who's married to Criterius. And they talk about the mysterious Chiron who's coming to the city, who is going to be the Queen's fella, basically, the Queen's man, which she's basically sourced him out and found out about him. But Melaine and Criterius are wondering where the hell this guy's come from, because Queen Vlardis hasn't brought him into the city to meet them or anything. So they've got no idea who this is. So the story gradually goes on like that. You meet Pilt, who is a young hool who's caught trying to take down a stag in the Queen's Forest. And then gradually he meets a few people, and you go down to the shore house where he ends up, and the whole story just, it's quite, I think it's quite gentle at the beginning. You don't really know what's going on, and then bam, things start to happen. And you get to know the characters and the newcomers that come in on the ship, the Lady Cross. You meet Captain Hearn, Palomina, who's got an interesting backstory. And yeah, it's just I just think it's a fun read. Don't take it too seriously, just enjoy it. I feel like it's a fast-paced kind of style.
Yeah. I'm about 60% through Gharantia's Guardian right now. And unlike, I feel like most of the other people so far, my favorite character is Criterius.
Yeah.
Criterius.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about how he absolutely does not need his ears boxed here in a few minutes. But Vivian says, hello, Lorraine.
Hi, Vivian.
We got Tim, also known as Professor Tim,
okay,
in the chat. Got Alex and Bella.
Yay.
And hungover Eamon. So
why is he not hungover? I just
Vivian says Pilt is the best. She's wrong, but it's okay. Everyone can be wrong every now and then. And then we've got Leslie.
Oh, Leslie, hi. Yep, these are guys. Some of these guys I've met on Ryan Cahill's Discord, actually. So we're kind of fans of Ryan Cahill, and we.
Do you know the story about how Ryan Cahill like called me a little guy one time?
Yeah, but it wasn't really about you. Yeah.
No, it was not about me at all. But that's going to go in my memoir one of these days.
It wasn't really about you. Yeah.
So that's Gharantia's Guardian. Let's talk the reason we're all here today, which is Gharantia's Fury. So in the first book, Criterius is guarding the place and doing an amazing job at it, by the way, in case you were wondering, while Pilt is going around like doing other stuff that isn't as important. So what is Gharantia's Fury? Like, what's the vibe there? Who is furious?
So So basically, the book one kind of alludes to they're all a little bit clueless about this God's war that's coming, and you kind of they get the hint that something is about to happen like throughout the book, and then Pilt is like basically asked to help track and kill some of these wild beasts in the forest. The queen isn't very impressed with these mysterious animals, and because of his, what you call it, skills, basically, he is asked, and Chiron, they go into to hunt the Dunagar, and that's how I pronounce it. The Dunagar.
Say that again for us slowly for Alex. Alex needs this.
Dunagar.
Dunagar.
Dunagar. It's quite, I don't know, it's quite Scottish, the Dun, there's a lot of, yeah. I think I just automatically just put things in that kind of sound Scottish without realising it, but yeah. So the Dunagar are kind of like wild cat type, even wolf. They're kind of, I would say more panther-esque, but maybe bigger heads. I'd love some character art on that, but I'm not Ryan Cahill with that budget, I'm afraid, not yet.
So I saw on Instagram recently there was an author doing a Kickstarter, and one of their Kickstarter, I've seen a few doing like plushies, but one had like these, I've seen two recent plushie Kickstarter things where like you could get a plushie of the thing as part of backing it to a certain level.
Yeah.
You could have Dunagar plushies.
Yeah,
have their
that
own
would be great. Yeah, I've got a Pally plushie myself here, but it's not really actually. My son's going to think that I'm so cringe. Sorry, Thomas. Yeah, so they're off on the hunt, and on the way back, basically this mysterious bleak cloud surrounds Chiron and Pilt. I hope you've all read book one, by the way. That's a big spoiler.
I'm midway through, but you know what? I'm good.
Good. Okay.
I'll be okay.
Basically, book two starts where they kind of left off in that situation. So that is, yeah, I'd get a Donegal plushie as well. So that is, yeah, and the reason why Grantia's Fury starts with where that left off is because I had no idea what to do with those chapters, because as I was writing Grantia's Guardian, I put that scene in where this mysterious bleak comes, and so being a panster, I'd already started writing book two, and then I had to go, oh my God, but how am I going to deal with that? So I think that was the issue that I had. One of my problems of getting into book two was to figure out how to deal with those chapters. So you basically get 3 chapters of Chiron and Pilt and what happens to them, and then the book kind of goes from there. So
and I know that was, for those of you who weren't here beforehand, it was honestly just me and Lorraine, but I had told her some of the questions I was going to be asking, one of which was from Alex, why book one ended when it did, and kind of why book two picks up right from that moment.
And I think, sorry, Alex, no spoilers. It's really hard to talk about your books without spoilers. Yeah, and also, I mean, because it's my first book as well, you kind of, to be honest, for me, I think Grantia's Guardian and Fury are like a big book that's kind of split. I think in hindsight, it probably would have been good to have like one massive book, but then again, who's
the
going
Fury
to read
of Gharantia's Guardians?
Yeah, but who's going to read a huge book from a day? Well, I know that some of you guys have written huge books, so and the Secret Scribes, but I just felt at the
Not
time.
Me.
No, I'm thinking about
Robin, Bill, and Lamia.
Yeah, Bill. But yeah, for me, it was kind of like GG is almost like part 1, and GF is like part 2. That's the way I kind of look at it. So I know that I've had a few comments about the ending of GG, saying there wasn't much of a I'm looking at you, Alex. Wasn't much of a like climax as such, but I hope people would keep turning and find out what happens, because can't jinx us chonker writers. I know. I think I would be a chonker writer if I was brave enough. So, good luck, chonker writers. But yeah, it's been a real ride trying to discover the actual way to write as well, and my own style. I think, because obviously when you read lots of different books, it's not until you sit down and you try and write it yourself that you're like, how did I write this? It's quite something, really.
So kind of going off of that, like counting these as 2 books instead of just 1, how many books do you have planned for the
Mm.
Chronicles of the Endless War?
This is the really difficult question, because in my head, there's going to be a few, and novellas as well, spin-off novellas that you might like. I think I'm just like, I've learned from Ryan Cahill as well about his novella idea, and that really, I love that, because you get real character and depth of situations and the characters. And one of my favorite writers is Philip Contrail, and his first series was a 9-book series, Echoes of Fate saga. So I kind of felt, I feel like mine might end up being about that. 9 books, 10 books. We'll see. But there's a lot of information in there. Like, I just feel like there's just so much that the characters themselves, it's like they're telling me what's happening in their story almost. So it's however much they've got left to tell me.
All right, so a 25-book series, guys. You have heard it first here. 25, Criterius is going to be like walking around with a walker, and Melane's hair has gone gray and she just wears like a muumuu everywhere.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they're pretty old already, because they've got magic in their veins, which
right.
is, I think Criterius and Milane, I've thought about this before. I think they're about 60 or something. But they're physically of the age of about late 20s, 30s. So they're older than they appear.
We've got a few Western Hemisphere. Wait, is Scotland in the Western Hemisphere? It is, isn't it? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
We've got a few North Americans here today, and Alex, Tim, myself, of course, who are just all slacking on a Monday and not at work.
Oops.
In the middle of the day.
And this is 7:20 already.
Yeah, it is 1:18 here.
Oh.
Tim does not understand time zones.
No, I don't either.
Which, that's fair. Never listen to Rob regarding time zones. He'll get you all screwed up.
And the Australian time zones are way out there as well.
They don't exist. Australia's fake. Basically, that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's the truth. Australia doesn't really exist out there.
Yeah, they're just too far away.
It's too far away.
Yeah.
Oh, Vivian's here in Pennsylvania. All right.
My geography of America is not the greatest, so I'm not
basically
sure.
You've got Texas, and then
And
everything
then
else is just
you don't
kind
live
of
there.
better than Texas.
Apart from you live in Oklahoma.
Yeah, well, yeah, apart from Oklahoma. Oklahoma is obviously the worst. Australia is fake news. Thank you, Tim. We all agree here on this. So we're going to talk about who is your favorite character to write, and then who is your least favorite character to write.
Well, in the beginning, obviously, Criterius and Pilt were they're like the main dudes in book 1, and I got to the sort of middle part of book 1, and it was just there about the right time to introduce Palomina into her. She comes into her own with her point of view. And I didn't really want to have too many points of view in book 1, because I have read other books where you just have a big pylon of like points of view. And I did want to have a sort of steady like introduction so that people weren't too overwhelmed. So yeah, definitely Pilt was a fun one. And one of my favorite chapters in GG was his introduction into the Shore House, and you get the main bar. Basically, I co-own a bar with my fella in Edinburgh, so the bar thing, I had to have a bar pub kind of feel about in my books.
So that means that you are, what are the names of the characters? I was just reading it.
So
okay, we'll get to that. That's a question for later. But we have a question here from Audrey. Did you plan your world history and magic before you started writing, or was it revealed to you through your characters as you were writing?
It's kind sort of, yeah. I think the world, I had an idea about the world when I started writing, obviously, and before GG, when I was writing all that stuff, the Gumph, and I think I was formulating what it was all about in those pages. So I reckon I probably wrote about 150,000 words that isn't published and probably won't be published. So the magic system, yeah, that's a whole different question as well.
We're looking forward to that question. If Bella is still here, Bella's really looking forward to that.
So yeah, it's basically the magic system's quite. I mean, I think it's not unique. I don't think it's quite unique, but the idea was that, you know, some people are going to be more powerful than others, and what was the reasoning behind that? And we have gods at the top of the chain, the food chain, and then basically the magic kind of goes like that, and it's a lot of the magic's through either the stones. So we've got two stones that are powerful in my world. We've got the red stone, which was split into two. And we have the Covacone stone, which belongs to my baddie. And the red stone is basically split into two, and one half is in one place and the other half is in Gharantia. So, oh, hi, Vivian. Yes, you will have to come and visit me. Come to my pub. And the juicy parts.
So we'll talk about the magic system as a whole. So, like, kind of explain how the magic system works, and then we'll ask some questions to get you embarrassed. But first off, before you say anything, I want to say something that I really like about your world and your magic system, where you have a queendom, and you have these powerful women who have the power and are in charge, and the men are just kind of there to do the women's bidding. And I feel like it is one of those things where in traditional epic fantasy, I have not really seen that vibe before. And it's not like all the men suck and are stupid and the women are in charge, and like, but it's more like the men and the women have these complex relationships. The men have their own thoughts and ideas, but it's not patriarchal at all. Yeah. And the main magic wielders are all women, and the men are kind of there to do what they want. And it's a cool thing for me as someone who has not read an incredible amount of things like that.
My idea was having, so the top of the chain are the gods. So Mist of Time is the main god, and she is female as well. So there's definitely a lot of female strongness, if you know what I mean. But the Mist of Time, this is a bit of the lore that you might or might not know. The Mist of Time had an argument with herself, and she split into two, so Mist and Time, and basically became like two sisters that are embroiled in this kind of like eternal war, and that's where the gods' war aspect comes from. But because they're two females, and they've obviously, you know, had their needs and wants, they've created men and they created other women, and their magic is kind of like filtered through who they have relationships with, which is the juicy bit. So magic is kind of like either inherited, like a DNA kind of thing. And when you get to the characters, you've got Melaine and Criterius. So Melaine is in the link of the queendom, and her powers are basically through her line. And because her and Criterius are, a couple, he inherits some of her power. And
They strengthen their bond.
yes, they have bonds that need strengthened, and if they don't spend time together, then his magic wanes and is weak. But if they strengthen their bonds, then he becomes powerful again. And there's a lot of, for me, when I'm writing it, I think you're not quite sure if the magic. What is the magic? Is it the magic that's making them kind of seek each other out, or is it them themselves? So I kind of, in my head, I'm not quite sure either what it is. Is the magic like another entity, like blood, but different? So there, you can have a wee think about that.
I would say one thing that's really interesting, and I'm only halfway through the first book, but like the queen basically semi-seduces Criterius, could if she wanted to, and then Snake Lady basically semi-seduces Criterius as well, and like he's only able to not really do it because like he's like, no, I need Melaine. So in my opinion, obviously Criterius is pure as driven snow and would never do anything to Melaine. But also there is kind of this, basically like they're using their magic to seduce / get their way, and like the whole thing with the queen basically like, hello Chiron, or however you say your name, you are now mine and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, Villarda, when you asked about who else I like writing about, I mean, I'm in book 2, you do get more. Oh, wait a minute, or is it book 3? No, I'm writing it now. Sorry, book 3, my head. Book 3 is more Villardus, so you've got Villardus's point of view coming through in book 3. So you kind of think you know her, but yeah, and her manipulative magic use is quite something. And people might get a bit of a shock when they get to the end of book 2, but in a good way, I hope. But it was really, really fun putting that together. And she's kind of like probably the one you don't like the most out of everybody that said to me. But I think you have to kind of put into perspective what she's dealing with as well. Yep, spicy end. Yep, thanks, Alex. Alex has finished it, so he knows.
So speaking of spice, these are all fade to black stories. So one of the questions that we've got is, why do you fade to black during the spice?
So I just felt I'm just quite embarrassed to write the full hog. And I know that I've got people's children reading through it as well. Like my friends have got 13, 14-year-olds and things they're like, hey, Lorraine's written a children's book, and I'm like, it's not a children's book. But I've had 13-year-olds read it, and 70-year-olds up to 70-year-olds read it, and everybody's enjoying it. So I didn't want to do like too spicy, but it might get spicier the more I go on. I have got.
You heard it here, guys. One of the novellas is just going to be a
spice. I know exactly what I need to do in this particular novella, but and I think there will be a bit of spice in it, and that's the story, though. That's the way it's going to be. So I'll be asking Bella to read over all my spice to make sure it's not too cringe.
So, along the lines of spice, we obviously need to talk about what Scotland is known for. So we'll go back to talking a little bit about the book here in a little bit, but we need to talk a little bit about Scotland first. So my first Scotland question, since you are from Scotland, is
I've got something.
do you eat haggis every day?
No, not every day, but I had it today just to remind myself how nice it is and tasty it is. But we sell in our pub, we sell haggis fritters and they are delicious. And yeah, the haggis, I just love it. It's great. We do black pudding as well, which I'm not as keen on, but haggis is.
And that's like blood.
Yeah, so oatmeal, things that belong to the sheep, spices though, suet, yeah, it's all kind of what they used to do is cook it in the sheep's stomach. I'm not sure if they all do that now or if there's a way they make it now without doing that, but yeah, that it's a traditional Scottish dish, but we normally have it Burns night. So Rabbie Burns, our poet, our famous poet. So it's something that you have haggis, neeps, and tatties. If you've heard of that, I don't know if you have, but yeah. So neeps is turnip,
I
which
like
is just
turnips.
like mashed in butter, uh, and like potatoes and the haggis. So
Okay.
tatties, yeah. So that's in January. We have that, but like when you're at somebody's wedding or something, you might have a chicken balmoral, which is your chicken, and then you've got your haggis kind of like inside it and then wrapped in like bacon or something like that. So
I have
we do.
had haggis and I liked it. But turnips are one of my favorite vegetables.
Mhm.
And a lot of people in the US don't eat them or even like know what they taste like. But
Oh,
turnips are like, so I don't know if you know about the Great Depression in the US and like the
yeah.
Dust Bowl. So like the Dust Bowl, basically like a bunch of the southern US, especially in Oklahoma, was just dusty and there was nothing growing at all. One of the things that they could still get to grow was turnips. And so people ate a lot of turnips in Oklahoma. And so
Just laugh
my
at the
grandma
comment.
used to always make turnips because they're something that she used to make as a child, and I love them. And everyone here is smart and likes turnips.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that's annoying about turnips is they're so hard and like cutting into them. I'm just so weak that I'm like, "Ugh." But apart from that, I love turnips. Somebody else is cutting them and mashing them, all the better. But yeah, they're good.
And so, continuing on our food and drink, could you could you describe iron brew?
Product placement. um, oh, it's so hard to describe iron brew. It's orange, it's fizzy, but it doesn't taste like anything you've ever tasted before. Um, Apparently, I was reading this the other day that iron brew was invented because all the dock workers and like big macho men would on their lunch break they would go to the pub and get drunk, um, and then come back to work. And so they invented iron brew so that they would drink iron brew instead of beer. So it would basically not get them pissed. So iron brew, and it was called iron brew to sound macho for the uh, dock workers and whoever welders and whatever else. So, but yeah, it's like if you haven't checked out the iron brew adverts, check them out. They're kind of like tongue in cheek and they're really quite funny. It's like the Scottish sense of humor.
I've
Uh,
never had it. I know that you can buy it at a few like world grocery store type things
yeah.
around here, and I might have to find. I think they have a diet one. That would be what I would drink.
Yeah, they've got diet, and like my colleague the other day brought in a cherry or something flavored one, which he said was disgusting. So don't bother having that one. But Iron Brew is my son's favorite drink. He
We
drinks
might
that.
need to do a non Scottish Scribes Iron Brew party or something.
Yeah, yeah. If we all have Iron Brew and then open them together and try and describe what it is. But
And then
yeah.
write a short story about it.
The fame. See, I've got various drinks in my book as well because I've got obviously you've got wine, and you've got your plum wine,
So much wine.
so a lot of wine. I've got Ricca, which is the sailors kind of almost like a rum.
Is that the one that's like semi addictive almost and like
Yeah, it's almost like kind of like your rum whiskey, like your kind of neat kind
right.
of thing.
That's
But
the
we're
one that Pilt they say
bad.
he drank a bunch of it at the beginning whenever he doesn't remember what happened.
Yeah, he got majorly hungover with that. And I could write about hangovers because obviously I have quite a lot of experience with hangovers as well. So yeah.
However, I don't know if you're going to be as good at writing about hangovers as like Eamon Bradley.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, he should be writing that now
He
because he is
probably is
hungover.
writing that now. As you're watching this, he's typing out like he's on 6K words for the day.
Yeah, he's on fire at the moment.
So let's see. One more Scottish question, and then we will go back to the other things. So we obviously have to talk about kilts. You're welcome, Bella. So how often do you actually see people wearing kilts in Scotland?
I'm sorry, it's not as much as you think. You have, well, because I live in Edinburgh, there's always somebody playing the bagpipes somewhere on the high street or Prince's Street, or so you will, if you're a tourist and you're coming over and you want to see sorry Bella, but you will see kilted men doing the bagpipes and stuff. But your regular guy, no, he just wears trousers. Unless they're going out on a ceilidh or somebody's wedding. So I have got a kilt to show you actually, because this used to, well, it is my son's, but when my son was about 18 months, we had, sorry, I'll just pop it there. We had this kilt made for him. So this is the Douglas tartan, and he looked really, really cute in it. So obviously you've got, if you're an adult, you have your wee pin there, and you have your sporran over it. You have your proper socks and your, shoes. You have your proper shirt and your waistcoat and everything. But they're really expensive. So we get people. It is cute. We get people that come to Edinburgh on holiday or they're tourists and everything, and they're like, "Hey, I want to buy a kilt," and you're like, "No, you have to get properly fitted." And I'd say you're probably looking at about £1,000 at least for a good quality. Yeah, you might be a bit too big for it, Tim. Sorry.
I don't know. I feel like what you just showed us is what Criterius wears whenever Mullane brings him in to strengthen their bonds.
Possibly, yeah. I haven't got kilts in. I'm not like Bella. I haven't got kilts in my books, but
Scotland is crying right now.
Yeah, sorry. But I do feel like my book is quite Scottish, but in other ways. But yeah, but maybe not in the kilt wearing way.
I can definitely like, and it's obviously I know you're Scottish, but like as I'm reading them, like this feels Scottish. The way I could see this happening. I could see Gharantia being like a city in like an alternate Scotland of sorts.
Yeah, that's like the inspiration for Gharantia itself is obviously you've got your palace on top of the hill, and the hill slopes down into a harbour. And obviously I live in Edinburgh. We've got Edinburgh Castle. It slopes down to Leith harbour. So the sort of geography of it all is kind of makes sense to me, and that's although the palace is very posh and very like made of marble and everything like that, whereas Edinburgh Castles is more like a military kind of stone building. But it's obviously
And
you pull in your
Glasgow
own.
Castle is made out of like cardboard.
Yeah. You make your own you take the inspiration from around you when you're writing, and Edinburgh's definitely a very inspirational place to live, and Scotland, I'd say. So you can't help but put that into your book somehow.
I've
In the
read and
language.
seen things about Glasgow and how
Glasgow, oh,
horrible.
Edinburgh versus Glasgow. Yeah,
What?
there's definitely a thing, but Glasgow's all right. It's all right.
And like I know Edinburgh is supposed to be nice,
Mm. So
but I've
what
heard Glasgow is not.
it's it's different. Like Glasgow's more your industrial kind of background, because it's you've got all the docks, and that's where all the kind of like factories and everything were. And my gran and granddad originally came from Glasgow. My granddad was Port Glasgow, and he worked on the build like the shipbuilding stuff. So it's definitely got a lot of history as well as Edinburgh. But Edinburgh, we get told that we're practically English because there's a lot of English people live here, or it's very touristy, which it is, because we have the Edinburgh Festival and book festival, and there's a lot of things going on, like theatres and things. So there's always something on in Edinburgh. But Glasgow's you've got your big concert halls and things like that for big gigs and stuff, the Hydro, and you see all the big bands and stuff coming in. So you have to go to Glasgow for that. But
Right.
it's I think they're both great cities. Actually, I'm being very on the fence. Don't want to fall out with anybody. But
So Audrey had asked, or Audrey had mentioned Maid of Honor. Have you ever seen this movie?
Maid of Honor. I don't
Yes,
think I have.
I feel like you need to watch it as a Scottish person. It is an American romantic comedy, but like the woman is marrying a Scottish guy, and her
All
like
right.
best friend who kind of likes her goes as her maid of honor, even though he's a guy, and like he actually does like her, but like it's probably every Scottish stereotype that has ever existed, and not like Scotland at all. But I think you might need to watch it for some research. Eamon
Yeah.
says that he'll be there next month and have to come for a
Oh,
pint.
if you are, yeah, definitely come up. Yeah.
So, speaking of the bar, the
Mm.
pub, what characters in the Chronicles of the Endless War are based off of you and your fella?
So this is quite funny because one of my all our my regulars, our regulars know I've been writing this book, and some of them have been reading it, and we do get that every now and again, saying like, who are you writing about here, and blah blah blah. The answer is nobody is. No, none of our regulars are in my books,
No,
and
about you. Who are you and who's your
well,
fella?
who am I? See, I'm them all because I think there's elements of me in all of the characters. And but this was not meant as well. So Mullane and Criterius, their names, it got pointed out to me that Lorraine, Mullane, Criterius, Chris is my
Yep,
other
it's
half.
you.
And but this is not what this, I didn't mean that at all. And anyway, like I can't give spoilers away because you've not finished it, but in GG that wouldn't work. But anyway, if I was Mullane and he was Criterius.
No, you're Silva.
Yeah, a lot of
And he is
he's
his name?
Balavar.
Yeah, I was trying to find Balavar,
Balavar,
Silva
yeah.
Balavar.
Yeah, he got when one of the regulars the other day was saying to him, "So who are you?" And he was like, "Oh, I'm Balavar, the downtrodden husband." But Silva is. I got my inspiration for Silva from my dad actually because he used to play the dame a lot when he was in Panto when I was growing up. So we every Christmas I'd go and watch my dad performing. as Widow Twanky or whoever it is. I don't know if you get pantomimes in America
I mean,
so
I know
much.
what a pantomime is, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
So it's like a tradition where you're literally every Christmas, growing up, you would go to the panto. So I'm from Pennycook, so my dad was in the Pennycook Players, and there was like a whole load of them. And obviously, I'm watching my dad dress up as a woman and being kind of manly and big voice and stuff like that. And I think in the back of my head, Silva is a little bit like a pantomime dame in that way of she's larger than life basically, and she's very commanding of who she's got around her. So I
Well,
don't think I'm like that really
I
in the
would
book.
say you can't say you're Silva either, because I just read the part not too long ago where Bolivar was like, "Yep, she almost got stolen away by that guy over there, but
Oh
she
yeah.
stayed with me."
The Thunen, I can't even remember his name. Thunen from the Rolling Tusk. Yeah, he was about fighting Bolivar for Silva's affections. Um, but yeah, Audrey's got a question. I'm
So,
all
how much Scottish traditions and folklore has impacted the way you've shaped your novel?
Probably it has shaped it a lot, but I'm not sure how. But there's obviously quite a lot of you grow up with quite a lot of things like hearing stories of the Kelpies and like fairies, maybe some things similar to Irish folklore as well about your fairies bring you down and promise you things, and then you end up in trouble, that kind of thing. But certainly magic and the kind of outlook that you have maybe in Scotland or maybe as writers you have of like anything is possible. I think that's why take away the fairy tale aspect. I think for me is quite important, and just right away and have that in my head. So and maybe some of the Scottish words or some of the words that I use in my writing, it's not Scottish and it's not Gaelic or anything or Gaelic. It's my own, but it might sound a little bit more Scottish if you maybe say it in a way.
So, related to kind of where you came up with things, besides obviously the plushie that you have, how did you come up with the idea for Palomina, the snake lady?
Yeah, I think that was so I love vampires, and I used to read all the Anne Rice books when I was like probably 17ish. And I know that a lot of people are writing vampire books. But I like the thing about, blood sucking, but not with a vampire. So I changed it up, and so Palomina is like two beings in the one body. When she's her female form, she's Mina, and when she's the snake, so she basically can turn into a snake. That is Pally, and when Pally's prominent, she's in the background, kind of like in him, looking out, but not in control, and vice versa. And I quite like the aspect of having like a dual, like body kind of thing, and that whole. And it was a challenge to write that as well because writing two creatures in the one, and sometimes you get the feeling that it's the one creature because I talk about the eye color quite a lot. And when Palomina is, her eyes are shining in the yellow, that's kind of almost when Pally and her are kind of more united, and she's in her female form, but you see a lot more of Pally. And it's just like I just really enjoyed it, really, the fantastical aspect of that.
And we actually have a real life lizard person in the audience right now, Tim Wolf. But Palomina does have a little bit of that lizard person vibe that he values so much. So that's kind of cool that you have she like two-part character snake
And kind of
person.
female and male as well, because Mina is obviously the female, and Pally is a snake who is like a male, but not like, you know, it's quite a difficult relationship sometimes they have. I'm sure when she might be seducing somebody. Like, I don't know if Pally's there going, oh, for God's sake. But yeah, that you get. I think there's a bit in book one where you have a little bit of more of their history. Yeah, the sexy snake lady.
Alex just called Tim a sexy snake lady, which, guys, you saw it here first. First he made a pass at Tim's mom. Now he's calling him a sexy snake lady. Alex is on one today.
What's happening?
Something's in the water in Austin, Texas.
I'm sure it always is in Texas.
Freedom's in the water in Texas. Damn it. So let's talk about Criterius, my dude, my man, the greatest dude to ever exist. Always a good dude, never does anything wrong. Why are some readers wrongly misunderstanding lovable little old Criterius?
I don't know. So when I wrote Criterius, obviously, I've had somebody that I sent the book out to a while back, basically told me they didn't finish it because Criterius really just too whiny and too moany or something. And but for me, Criterius at the beginning is very much under Malene's magic. And perhaps in my eyes, he's not really himself, because like the magic's manipulating him and things like that. So when Malene she has these prophecy kind of seer dreams. Yeah, love hate, yeah, relationship. When she has those dreams at the beginning, she kind of withdraws her, bedroom. She shuts the door on Criterius, and he becomes really needy and really quite, oh, what's going to happen to me? And writing it was quite funny because I just thought, well, that's what you would be like, So I'm kind of sticking to what you would be like, and I didn't realize that was going to put people off.
Maybe I really like it, but also I think I am a needy, emotional, whiny person. So like Criterius speaks my language, but
that's true. But yeah, he's a good guy. Like, I think he's been brought up well. He's been brought up in a sort of, he's not from Gharantia originally. He's from a place called the Larches, which is a duchy that's it was like a late addition to the Gharantia realm, and there's reasons for that as well, which you'll find out in book 2.
I think I've admitted it before, Bella, but okay.
No, you did. But yeah, Criterius is like, so basically when he meets Palomina, I mean, he's walking into Hearn's cabin and he's seeing this beautiful, gorgeous, blonde, half naked lady curled up on his knee, and he's just like, wow. And I think that would be the reaction from maybe most men, like, that fancy women, that they'd be like, oh, she's pretty hot. And then she clearly likes him because there's some sort of chemistry going on. And obviously you find out later on what happens between them two and then Malene. So there is definitely a yeah.
If you haven't, Lorraine, read his novella, The Whisper That Replaced God, which is fantastic. Sadly, it could not be in our Sphinx bracket because Bill and I had already read it and liked it. But it starts off with the main character walking into a brothel where he's basically like obsessed with one of the workers there. And so just like basically the same kind of situation in a way, except I don't.
I was like, oh. I mean, Palomina was like, I feel like Palomina has been manipulated too by magic, because obviously her bond is with Captain Hearn, and you find that like you might not like him either. Like as you're reading through what happens.
What I've gotten from him so far, I don't like him, but I've only
Yeah.
seen that, one little part.
Yeah. And I think you get, like, once you get into book 2, I think you might start understanding a little bit more about these characters. I think book 1 kind of lays a little bit out, and you've got to keep reading basically to find out more, which is,
you heard it here, guys. You need to keep reading the series. Don't just read book 1, read all of the books.
Yeah. And it's great because people have told me that yeah, that's true. I mean, it's true. He's a horror. Like, he is a horror. But yeah, people have said that book 1 is a page turner, and like, that's great because
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I finished up some of the other stuff that I was getting through, and I'd read like the first 30 pages, like, this is good. I like it. And then I finished up some of the other stuff, and I've read like 220 pages in a day and a half, basically.
Wow.
Since then. Cool. So like, it is a page turner, guys. You should read it. Bella would probably box my ears if I didn't ask this question. So
okay.
When is Melaine going to box Criterius's ears?
All right, okay. Put your, if you don't want a spoiler, never.
Sorry, Bella, your dreams will not come true.
I think, yeah, Melaine is, Melaine gets a bit of a rough deal, I think. And Lamia. Yeah, like Melaine gets a bit of a rough deal, but I think she comes in her own at the end of book 2, and definitely, like, she still gets a bit of a rough time at the beginning of book 3, but I think she's quite a strong character underneath everything. She's had a lot to deal with. She had a bit of a rough childhood. Her aunt wasn't very nice as well. You have to remember that. Her mum died when she was young, and she was brought up by her aunt, which was Vlardis's mother, Queen.
And then her cousin also sucks. So
yeah, no, so she's in a bit of a weird family situation, and you've got to keep that in mind.
One of the other questions was, is Vlardis actually good or evil? That might be spoilers.
You just have to wait and see. You just have to wait and see. But yeah, it's really cool writing about her in the 3rd book. Like, I'm really enjoying it. So yeah, there's quite a lot of fun stuff coming up. I'm on chapter 11 at the moment, so
I did figure out what character is based on the customers in your pub.
Oh,
it's Captain Hearn in book 1.
No, I mean, Captain Hearn's like your kind of fierce piratey dude, and I did watch a lot of Pirates of the Caribbean in my time, and I love pirates, and I love like ships and things, and I had to bring that into my book, although it's not like a pirate, Sorry, yeah, no spoilers. It's not like typically a pirate book, but I had to put a lot of things in there because I enjoy it, and I enjoy the sea. And this is like another one of the ideas when it'll go, there'll be a bit with the sea involved because there's the magical creatures, the Fail, as well, right, in the book. So there's a lot of things that hinted at in book 1, and you'll get there, but this is why it might take a while with the amount of books, because there's a lot of lore and things to get through. So,
and we haven't talked about Pilt all that much. I know Vivian said she loved Pilt.
Yeah, Pilt is one of the
main cool character where he's basically kind of a. So does he play an instrument or does he just sing?
Yeah, he plays a flute. So what he'll do is he'll come on stage and play little tunes and ditties just to get the crowd going, and then he'll start singing. So he's more a singer. Basically as it would be in those times, you would get more communication and storytelling through the songs, and there'll be, there's hints of it in book 1 and book 2. He gets called the Singer of Truths at one point. Yeah, Pilt is a really, really favourite character, and I have to tell you about that book group I went to as well. The ladies in the book group I got invited to, and they're all in their 70s, and they were amazing. And as I was walking out the door, I said, "So which characters do you like the most? Because I'll do something mean to them." And one woman just went, "Oh, my Pilt!" So he's like the grandson of a lot of people, or the son of, I'm sure. And I have my own son, and who's 14, and I think Pilt is maybe a little bit older than that, about sort of 15, 16 kind of age. So yeah, it's kind of like your boy growing up. So it's like the coming of age story for him, his kind of story arc.
And Lamia, just so you know, he does have a dark secret. Just spoilers. No.
Yeah, no spoilers. He's got a past, like, you don't really find out about why he's ended up in Gharantia for a while. I kind of made that a little bit of a mystery at the beginning, so you kind of get hooked in a little bit to go, who is this boy? So hopefully that, yeah, young and impressionable. He's a bit clueless, I think, sometimes. Like, he doesn't really understand what's going on, which is quite cute, I think. But book two is interesting for him as well. So he's not massively in book two, but you will get, you'll get a good inkling of what's going on with his powers as well, because he's obviously got some magic as well.
Talon or Talor, the one that yeah, like that whole scene, I was like, Pilt is so clueless and doesn't know what's happening.
Yeah, Tyler totally fancies this, flute boy, and Pilt's got absolutely no idea, and he still doesn't have any idea what it all means, because he's just not thinking about romance or anything at that age. So he's just clueless. Yeah, it's great.
So moving on to a serious question here. What are some of your tips as a female fantasy writer for other female fantasy writers, or people who want to become, who want to write more, want to become female fantasy writers? Like, how is it different? What are some things you've had to what has been your experience?
Yeah, I mean, like, how, I signed my name as L.M. Douglas, so just do the book one more time. So L.M. Douglas, because I did feel, and maybe, I'm a bit older as well, so when I was growing up, I wasn't reading a lot of female authors, fantasy authors. I mean, I did have Anne Rice, and there's been a few, but most of my people that I've been enjoying and reading have been male writers. So I don't know if that's, L.M. Douglas did sound quite cool. So I kind of went with that. But I think now fantasy's really huge. And being an indie author, I think, because there's definitely a lot more female authors out there than even I realized. And since I've kind of published in November last year, and kind of joined the community here on Twitter and on Discord and everything, and getting to know other authors and stuff, I'm like, oh my God, like I'm learning so much about the fantasy genre, which I didn't even know before. I never left reviews for books that I'd read. I never realized how important they were for other authors. So yeah, I just think if you're wanting to write, I don't think there's anything that's stopping you now. And being indie published, it's such a great way to get out there and get your book out there. And I chose to be indie published because I saw how successful other people were doing it, and I thought, well, why not? I'd rather be in charge of my art direction and putting things together, and I didn't want anyone telling me what to do, because nobody does that. You don't tell me.
Did you ever have any thoughts about wanting to query or anything like that, or did you just?
I think it's a waste of time. I just think that, I mean, I've always wanted to be a writer since I was young. And I've gone like a massive curve. So I've done everything apart from write. So I've done photography. I went to college and done short courses there. I've done art. I went to Leith School of Art and I did a short course in printing, and I've done so many different things. But it wasn't until COVID that I basically couldn't go to work. So it was then I thought, well, I don't have anything here other than like, my laptop and my brain. So I'll just start. And I think that's where a lot of people maybe just don't realize it is that easy, but you do have to make it a routine or else you'll fall away, I think. But yeah, I've watched a lot of videos and things about how to write, and tropes, and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I think I've just kind of did my own thing and hope it works.
Because like Gharantia's Guardian, you've got cinnamon roll male main character. I bet he probably has cooked for her at some point. Like all the things, like one castle or only one bed in the castle. Like all the tropes are there.
Yeah. And that wasn't really intentional. That was just the characters told me what was happening, not,
That's for those of you who are not scribes. We were having a chat about tropes earlier, and those were a few of the tropes that were brought up as things that we need to add into. If you know Ari Sanders, Rob, his book Demon's Tier, book 2, he's going to really try harder to have like some cinnamon rolls and some like romance and stuff amidst all of the like pikes killing people and great swords and everyone dying. So I'm making that up, by the way, guys. He's not going to add those things. So let's see. We're getting close to the end, I would say. Chat peoples, if you have questions that you want answered, send them into the chat here. One that we're going to talk about here is, first off, who are some of your influences? Like, you've talked about Ryan Cahill and Philip Quantrell, but who are some of your other influences that you would say, like, maybe that you read and thought, I'd like to be a writer because of these authors? Or
well, that's like right at the beginning, that's the Enid Blyton books when I was 8, 9, 10, or the Magic Wishing Chair and the Enchanted Forest and all that. And then I read Alice in Wonderland quite young. I think I was about 12 when I got a copy. Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe. I mean, they're quite, kind of cliche type stories. But I think at that age, when you're growing up, that's where the magic you kind of happens in your head. You're reading it, you're transformed into that world. And when you get, to our age, it's almost like, well, I kind of felt like I needed a bit of magic back. So created my own. Well, the world is awful, isn't it? The world, like, let's not talk about politics, but everything's going on and it's a bit crazy, and there's war, like real wars happening and things. And I think fantasy, and maybe it's not just me, but fantasy, the worlds that you create is a way to escape. So Merlin novels, I haven't read any, actually. No, I haven't read any.
I've read a few of the Arthurians. Like my dad had all of those. She also wrote a bunch of Greek mythology based ones that we had that I read. The King Must Die is a really good one for anyone out there who wants to read like a Theseus retelling that was probably written in like the 60s or 70s. But Mary Stewart was a good author.
I think, I kind of stopped reading so much when I went to university as well. And obviously read, got back into fantasy when Game of Thrones kicked off. And that's where that all, the fantasy stuff came back. And I read the Cavalcade series, she's got her 6th book coming out as well.
The what?
The Kelcade.
Oh, I've seen the name. I have not read
Yeah,
any of those.
I read all them as well, and then that's when like in the end, obviously Philip Contrail was my favorite author of all time, and I've got his books, and yeah, he inspired me to actually write, because just the way he writes with the short, fast paced kind of novel, and I could sort of saw that I really enjoyed that, and could I do something like that, and then found out he was an indie author, and that kind of kick-started that. So
I have to restate The King Must Die is by Mary Renault, not Mary Stuart. However, Mary Stuart did write a lot of Arthurian novels that I have read. So Dave's the worst. But so Philip, I have not read any of his books. I know one of them's a Dragon Rider series.
yeah,
The other one also
they're
Dragon
both,
Riders.
yeah, they're both. I haven't read his new series yet, but I will. But yeah, Echoes of Fate is the 9-book series, and it doesn't start off being a Dragon Rider book, so you kind of you build into it a little bit. He's like Asher is assassin, and yeah, you need to read it. We all, I mean, there's a lot of us, there's a lot of us that kind of obsess over, which is a bit of a shame on Ryan Cahill's site, where on his indie channel, we're always going on about
You're
Philip
like
Quantrell
this
all the
other
time.
Dragon Rider series.
Yeah, like no. We're a bit obsessed, but it's really good fun, and it's a good series. Like you do go through it really quickly. No, he's my book hubby. Leslie.
Character or the author?
Leslie's met him. Leslie just met.
Oh.
Well, she met Ryan down in London recently, and I should have
To read
gone.
The Echoes of Fate.
Yeah, I should have gone to Glasgow to meet all the authors at Worldcon, but I was actually tied up at work. So um, August in the pub's busy, so I kind of had to miss out on that, which is a bit silly. But it would have been amazing to go to Worldcon.
Speaking of Philip Quantrell, would you
Mm.
like to tell your story of your recent experience?
I'd love to. Yeah, I've got it here. So I basically went into a charity shop, and well, I was at work. I was supposed to be picking up card for work um, down in a nice area called Stockbridge, and picked up some cards specifically for our menus. And there's a bookshop, well, there's quite a few charity shops down that way. And I said, oh, I'll just have a quick look. And then went in, and then I saw this sitting there, which is a very, very different cover to what his series is like. So this is the actual. So it's a bit of a difference. So
Right.
yeah. So this was his first edition. I'm basically on Instagram, and I messaged him going, "This is a different cover to what I expected," and he went, "Oh my god, that's like a first edition, and I don't have a copy of it." So I'd already walked out the shop because I can't buy another book because my fellow will get really annoyed with me. But when he was like, "It's a first edition," I was like, "Oh my god!" So I had to I'm go back for it now, and I bought it, and I'm really chuffed with it.
You did what you needed to do.
Yeah, and I'd love for him to sign at some point. So hopefully one day get to meet him.
I mean, where is he based? I don't know much about him.
I think he's still down in Cheshire, so he's in England. Yeah.
So he's not that far away.
No.
Okay.
If you're ever listening to this, Philip, if you ever come to Edinburgh, come and see me. Come to my pub.
Guys, we just need to get onto his socials and spam him with tags for Lorraine's pub.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Don't mention her. Just be like,
just
you know what would make you help you to get it, lots of you just feel so much inspiration to write. Go to, I can't remember the name of your pub in Edinburgh.
I better not say, just in case I get sort of online strangeness coming on. But yeah, very protective.
Alex is on here. It's true.
Yeah, no, you never know.
So speaking of books, we'll kind of finish up with, what are some books that you've read or are reading, or that you'd like to talk about, or books that you would like to recommend that everyone should read?
Well, I think everybody should read all of the Secret Scribes books
Very true.
because they're all good. Like, even though I don't know if they're all good, but I'm assuming they're all good. I've only read Path of Blades by Rob, and I've read The Dream Thief by Bella, and I'm still making my way through Spricket by Sean, and yourself, of course, your book. I'm on I think chapter 5 now. It's getting a bit meaty at the moment. They're in a pub, funnily enough.
They are in a pub. That happens.
Having some wine. Yeah, there's a theme.
A lot of that.
But yeah, like other than those, I'm reading the J. Christoph. I read not Interview with the Vampire. That's Anne Rice. I always say
the
Empire of the Vampire. No,
Empire of the Damned.
Well, it's Empire of the
I have
Damned.
not read those.
Yeah, Empire of the Damned is the second one. Empire of. Anyway, I'm my brain. But yeah, I'm reading them, and I really enjoying them. Like in fact, so much so after the first book, I was really depressed because I thought, oh my God, he's such a good writer. I'll never be as good as him. And that's the thing. You always compare yourself to other writers that are like totally established, and you've got to kind of like rein it in. Empire of the Vampire.
That's what I said, and it just sounded weird. Empire, vampire. I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm really enjoying them. They're great. And that's like, it's a bit like my vampire fix. So I might have to go vampire books next just to get into that vibe again.
I think the only thing I've read by him there was like a sci-fi YA series that he co-wrote with someone that was like heists in space with teen characters, and it was fun. But I haven't really read. I think I read a little bit of Nevernight.
Yeah, I've heard mixed things about Nevernight.
I didn't really like it, but
yeah, I've heard some people like that, but maybe not book 2 But yeah, reading is so subjective, isn't it? Like, what makes a good book? It's really difficult because it's your, like, if you suit that style, I think you're kind of either tuned into that author's style or you're not. I don't know what the formula is, but
which makes something like Judging for Sphinx hard, because you get books that sometimes it's like, and I think we tried within the Scribes to like get the books to people who might be interested either in that book or that genre.
Yeah.
So like, for example, Bella said no to any sci-fi whatsoever. But like, it's still one of those things where whenever you have to read some books, you're going to find some that just don't quite hit the way you would want it to, and just that's the way.
And I'm quite a slow reader as well. Sometimes, like, as well, if I've got a lot in my mind, like, I'll tend to try and do my writing, so it's quite hard to, like, you know, if you're reading a book and it's not quite working, like, I'll tend to just leave it, but I have every intention of going back to it. It's just one of those things. But like, for example, Sean's book, it's not that I don't like it, I love it, but I feel like I can take it in small bits, like I'm enjoying it, but I just need to like read a bit at a time, and it's just the way I'm fitting it in. And obviously, being a judge now, you're kind of having to read these novellas as well. So I think I'm glad I only picked 4 books to read. Because I don't think
I've read 6 of my 7.
Well, that's good going. Yeah,
I've taken a break before actually reading the 7th one, just because it's an epic fantasy, and I think it's the longest one that I had to read. So I thought, I'm going to take a break and get some.
I've really enjoyed the judging aspect, and I think it's actually good to learn how to write. as well, like not just how to write, but how to write a novella. I think there's an awful lot of skill involved in that. And yeah, I obviously want to be writing my own novellas as well. So it's great to see how some are maybe a bit too tied to their world to be their own like books and their own stories. What?
All I
Yeah.
have to say to Alex.
I mean, I've got the arc as well, and I have to like get on with that as well. But yeah, it's like, so, like I think that's it. It's like the novellas that we've got in the competition, as a like they kind of have to be like standalone, kind of beginning, middle, and end. But some of them kind of allude a lot more mystery in it, and you have to read the series for the rest of it. So it's quite tricky, I think.
But you want the novella to connect because you also want people who have read the series to read it and find those things. But you don't want it to connect too much because then you can't get it as a standalone. It's a very difficult line to walk.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll just quickly show people. I have written this is the cover that I made myself, but I do have another cover. So Gharantia's Shadow. It's very, very small because I wrote part 1, and I will have part 2 written hopefully soon or next year, which I will be releasing. But at the moment you can you get it free if you join my newsletter. So you get Gharantia's Shadow. So if you've read GG and GF and you still want a little bit something to read, you can read that as well. A little plug.
So to end, make sure you all go, and if you have not yet, buy copies of Gharantia's Guardian and Gharantia's Fury.
Yep.
They are, well, I haven't read Fury yet, but Guardian's great. Alex says Fury is great. We criticize Alex a lot, but he does have good taste. So
and he writes very good reviews.
Yes. So buy these books, read these books, leave reviews for these books. Go out there and show Lorraine some love. She is awesome, and we want her to get all of the credit for this awesome series that she's been writing.
Cheers.
Go get some iron brew, drink that down, eat some haggis. Anything you would like to say, Lorraine? Any last words?
I mean, for me, like, just this year's been, well, it's coming up to a year anniversary. Like November will be a year anniversary of Gharantia's Guardian, and it's been great. It's the community, the vibes, everything. Like, I just feel like I'm really enjoying it, and I'm enjoying writing, and I just hope that everybody is like up for reading it and spread the word. So yeah, it's nice to see everybody as well. So I feel really supported, and the Secret Scribes is really supportive as well. So and a shout out to Bill, because Bill helped me a lot. He read GG. I think he was one of the first scribes to read it, I think, through. And he helped me kind of do a bit more editing on it and stuff. So I re-released it, kind of not really released, but I kind of, he is the man. He helped me kind of smarten it up a little bit for August there, and I kind of uploaded it again. So sort of apologies for people that might have read it before. You got the sort of real version, the Loza version, but now you're like post Bill version. So Bill, thank you, Bill. I really I needed that, because one paragraph is about 3 pages long, apparently. As bad as Alex in his chapter writing.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching. We are headed out here, but like I said, go read the Chronicles of the Endless War by L.M. Douglas. Bye, guys.
Bye.